Do I do it? Hey Theo, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
I act like we haven't just spent the whole day together.
We live together.
We live together.
Anyway.
Episode 4 of our podcast, Do I Do It? This week was a really fun episode.
Yeah.
I'm so excited about it. We had an amazing guest. Her name is Kelly Bryden, and we talk a little bit more about all the things that she is in the episode, but she is a spatial designer. Spatial designer, yeah. Which is kind of like a combination of interior design and experiential marketing and experiential design. So she's kind of paved her own way in the world of design. Of
physical. I kept in the episode. I kept trying to figure out how to call it, but it's art. It's like physical art. You know? Like, I mean, she's kind of our first artist that we've had on that focuses on physical manifest. Like, you know, we've had music and we've had writing, and those are all kind of more abstract. And this is like art that you experience with your five senses.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like.
For sure. Well, and she talks a lot about like the smell that you experience when you walk into something or into a space, the way it makes you feel, which art is all about feeling for sure. But yeah, it's a very unique conversation.
It's tactile. That was the big thing that we talked, or one of the things that we talked about, and we had a very tactile thing that we did.
This is the weird.
Let's cut to the chase. So it doesn't sound weird, but on the episode we got to make these card holders with Kelly, and
they're like little wallets.
She brought these instructions for them that she does with her brand Club Betty.
It's a craft club in London.
Yeah.
So it allows people to be able to get together, be creative, do all sorts of different DIY kinds of things. And it really brings together art, community, being able to have that more tactile experience, that kind of thing. Because we talked about that really brings so much joy to so many people. And I feel like that's like a really important part of.
We got a hands-on like workshop on doing some crafting and that, which was like really fun.
Super fun.
The other thing about this episode that's very different, and hopefully you'll notice, is the audio.
Yay!
Hopefully a lot better.
So before, the way that we had been doing it, I mean, we are learning every episode, really. Like, that's an important thing to note, and an important part of our kind of brand in a way, right? Like, we just decided to go for it. So we've been doing a lot of learning. So the other thing that we've done is we've split up some of the kind of behind the scenes of it. So Theo is doing all the audio now, and I'm going to be focusing on video.
It was just too much for you to be doing both. So very exciting. And I mean, Theo has a little bit more experience in that with his music background in recording an album and that kind of thing. So very exciting. And please let us know if you notice a difference. Tell us what you think. I really hope you notice a difference, because it was a lot of work. It's fun. It's an art in itself. Maybe we'll have someone on in a future episode, and this isn't like a foreshadow.
We have someone in mind.
Do we?
Yeah.
Oh.
Carry on.
Okay, so we have someone in mind, but I've been learning about like the art of mixing and editing and like the mastering process, the EQing process, and it's fun, but it's a lot of work. So
yeah. Speaking of coming up episodes, we are lining up a bunch of different guests here for the coming weeks. Very exciting. But the other thing that we want to do is we want to get our audience involved. If you know somebody that you think would be an amazing fit to come on to the Do I Do It podcast, tag them in the comments, let us know, send us a message. We're always looking for artists and talent that have been doing things. They've just gone for it, and we'd love to chat with them. So keep us posted.
You should put our email address on the screen.
Yes, we can do that.
There's our email address right there.
Good work. And then you can also just comment, send us a message on Instagram or whatever. So there's all sorts of ways to get a hold of us. But yes, we're hoping that you're enjoying the podcast. We love making every episode, and so much good to come.
Enjoy the episode with Kelly. great to have you, Kelly. Thanks for joining us for episode
4.
Episode 4.
Wow.
Episode 4.
Do I Do It
Congrats.
podcast.
Thank you.
Lovely to have you.
We're very happy to have you. We'll try that again. No, but it's so great to see you. And we met at an Adobe event in November. And it was so great to chat with you then and follow a little bit about all the things that you've been up to for the last little while. So you're a spatial designer, and you have another thing called Club Betty, which is a craft club.
Yes.
So cool. And you're very present on social media as well. Would you call yourself an influencer, or what do you think?
I call myself a creative content creator, which is kind of confusing because it's kind of 3 of the same words all right next to each other. Creative content creator. But I like to just share creative projects, DIYs, design tips, things that I see. I try not to influence too much in the buying space, but more just share creativity. So cool. I don't know, maybe I'm an influencer, but
that's a very positive
kind of
mm-hmm.
I love that.
I like that a lot. Yeah. That's interesting that like the idea of creative, adding that tag to it,
mm-hmm.
creative content, whereas maybe 5-10 years ago, content creator would be redundant to
mm-hmm.
say creative, but I feel like now that actually is necessary to include that.
When you think about it, 3 years ago, how many things were different in the workspace world? 5 years ago, how many things were different? 10 years ago, even when I started in graphic design, I didn't even know what graphic design really was and entailed, because I didn't see any of my parents' friends or adults in that field. But then it was so different because they didn't have the same kind of programs and laptops and things, and that only kind of seemed to have sprung about in the 2000s. And thinking in the past 20 years how many different creative jobs have come up, and then others maybe have disappeared. But it goes all the way into influencer world and content creation.
Well, and I think about some of the photos and videos that I see of even advertising agencies and that kind of thing, where they had, because of the fact that they didn't have computers for the most
mm-hmm.
part, they would have maybe 1 or 2 for every office or whatever, but they didn't have big programs like that for a lot of people, and so they would actually draw stuff out. And I know that sounds so silly to say that out loud, because it's no kidding, but it's that's actually, even watching Mad Men and stuff, right, where it's actually real art boards and that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, and things that probably took them a week, and nowadays myself, other creatives could get it done in a matter of an hour. With all different kinds of software and tools and the internet and everything.
100%.
But it is really cool to think that everyone did it by hand.
Right. I know.
I guess that's also why I love doing DIY projects, because it is still so tactile, and I'm using my hands to make something from either 0 to 100, or start with something that's one way and ending it with being in a totally different form or color or something different.
That's so cool. So you mentioned this, that you didn't grow up with people who kind of worked in that design kind of space. What did your attitude start with as you were growing up about the career in the arts? What was that like for you?
Yeah, my parents were a teacher, and my dad worked for AT&T, a phone company. And I consider them to be creative in their own ways. My dad did a lot of woodworking and built our swing set and finished our basement and anything that we wanted. He built my sister a loft bed. He knew how to build things. And then my mom is very creative, and in her school teaching way, she would make elaborate bulletin boards in our classrooms and all different kinds of craft projects for the kids, but none of them had creative careers. And so I never knew what that kind of day or that kind of lifestyle looked like. I very much knew what someone who went to a business office and someone who went to a school, like what that looked like as an adult. But from a very young age, I was very fortunate. My parents always were supportive of me being creative. My first I probably started my first love was trading spaces on TLC.
Oh,
and
I love TLC.
Yeah. And I watched that religiously, and I made little flyers and I put them in my neighbors' mailboxes, and I was like, I will come and transform your spaces. I was probably adorable. 10. Who was allowing that? My one neighbor. And my best friend that lived across the street, her parents we're just like, yeah, you guys can paint the walls. So I remember we picked out the paint, and then we picked out sponge brushes and of hearts and flowers, and we painted all over the walls with them. And yeah, it was awesome. I feel like, yeah, maybe that was my first project in spatial design.
That's so cool.
But then with that, my parents also let me to every weekend I probably rearranged my room of some sort, or I built a shelf out of cardboard, or I still love palm trees, but I would make elaborate palm trees out of cardboard and surfboards and all these things to add to my wall decor. So that just has always been a part of my life. I don't remember ever not making things, or ever not having support behind that.
And that DIY kind of attitude that your parents had too, with the woodworking, and then also still, my mom was a teacher for a long time, so even that kind of there's a lot of creativity that goes into that. That's a huge part of it. So I'm sure that was really a shaping kind of environment for you.
Yeah, I definitely didn't know where that would go as a career, but I always knew if I don't know if you guys had Star of the Week, but it was in elementary school, and everyone one week every kid in the class was the star, and so we always had to write down what we wanted to be when we grew up. And we have all of the posters still in our basement at my parents' house, and all of them fluctuate from artist to interior designer to, I had a little stint of wanting to make perfumes.
Okay.
So cool. Maybe that'll still happen.
I know, maybe. But yeah, all of them never shied away from the creative world. Oh, wow. But none of them said graphic designer or spatial designer or experiential designer, because I had no idea what those things were.
Right.
But yeah, from a young age, I've just always been making things.
That's cool. And I think, like I said, having two parents that are very DIY and fostering that kind of environment for you, I feel would be so important. I love that you had that opportunity when you were 10 to paint a room and that kind of thing. I feel that's such a great memory as well, to see that was something that you were interested in from the time you were young to moving forward now. And you still paint murals and that kind of thing, so it's a full circle kind of moment where it's you were doing that and now that's what you're getting paid to do, which is amazing. So cool.
So I guess when you were a kid, that was obviously having the TLC show and that sort of thing to inspire that. But what is it about? I'm just imagining, because I'm not particularly gifted at visual art kind of thing. I've tried painting and that kind of thing, but I'm more of a writer and that sort of thing. But so what is it about that expression, that form of creative expression that you feel drawn to, if that makes sense as a question?
I think that I just really get joy out of making things, but also seeing the beginning and the end. Sometimes I think that I rush it too much because I'm so, whatever I have dreamt up in my head, I'm so excited to get there. And that is like, I don't know, the high that keeps me going and like wanting me to create something next, because I like am like, oh my god, that was so exciting to go from having a blank canvas to now having flowers on my canvas that I thought of in my head and now it's real.
Yeah, like I think about like this, like I've only just after like having met you and learning about your work in that, like this spatial design kind of thing, like I've known about interior design as a sort of subcategory or that kind of thing, but like this idea of like, I feel like the notion of like transforming spaces, like physical, tangible, tactile spaces, it's a really special and really like important way of harnessing the arts and that kind of thing.
Definitely am not sure how many people use the term spatial design.
Okay.
But I have coined it and started using it because I feel like interior design doesn't really fit the work that I do.
Interesting.
And a lot of that is, in my head, interior design is more homes and hospitality and like restaurants. And a lot of the work that I do is for brands. And so a lot of these brands live offline, they live on social media, they live on websites, but they don't have physical spaces. And most of the projects I work on are some type of pop-up or a short-term thing. So I call it spatial design because I'm really working on what does that brand look like in the physical world, because it doesn't have a physical space in a lot of cases. And I worked with a company, Youth to the People, and we designed an Airstream for them. So yeah, they're a beauty company and they have some stores, but mostly are an online platform. So it's like, yeah, like what does this space look like? And it does like come down to interior design did happen within the Airstream, but I refer to it more as spatial design because it's, okay, what is how I see it is like, what is the whole experience? What's the whole experience when you walk up to the building or Airstream or something? What's now happening when you come inside of it? How are you moving around the space? What do you see as you move around the space? What do you smell as you move around the space? So those kind of things in my head are different from interior design. But
that's fascinating. Like the way what I'm relating it to, which is like, okay, so we I remember like before we moved here to London, we'd gone on a couple trips to Europe and to Paris and elsewhere in Europe.
Theo just loves Paris.
I love it. Yeah, I bring it up first, but I like just like there was a genuine like an emotional shift from coming from like really beautiful spaces, right? Like in Europe and then coming to like sort of that more kind of efficient kind of place of the like Western Canada is like that. But what I'm comparing, or what I'm kind of drawing the connection to, is like I wonder how much people think about like the emotional effect that aesthetics of the place that you're in, like the actual physical place that you're in.
There are some like research studies. I don't know if and I don't know the story completely, but there was like a town that they decided to paint everything blue, and it boosted the like morality of everyone who was living there, because before it looked so run down, but everything with a fresh coat of blue paint, like it was exciting for them.
That's so cool.
And I think there's also something about like a street that had a lot of crime, and then they painted everything like colorful, the storefronts colorful, and it helped reduce crime. And so that's kind of what I like aspire to do, is like create these public spaces that have an effect on everyone's emotion. And I think art is something that really can change your mood, and it should be like accessible to all. And how what a better way to do it than put it on things that are already, you're walking by already.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think, I noticed about your work too is that you love a lot of color, which is so much fun. And I really do think that adds so much energy, because there is a lot of not color in the world, right? Especially, we're kind of moving out of it, I think, but there was that period of time where everything was like so minimalistic and that kind of thing. I think about like Kim Kardashian's house tour that she did, where it was just like pure white everywhere, and I was like, oh my gosh. But sterile. Yeah, that was the biggest criticism that like everybody was commenting on. But I think that's one of the really interesting parts of your work. And when I was looking through your portfolio and that kind of thing, it really adds so much energy and so much to the brand. So do you find that you typically will like to work with brands and on projects that are more on that color base? Or
yeah, and I think that I push them in that direction too.
Good.
Of course, I'll always have some feedback. Every brand can't have all the different kinds of colors, but my general design style leads toward that. So even taking their brand identity into consideration, I think how I interpret it and then like show them a 3D render of a space, it will always lean more on the colorful side than the not colorful side. And I don't say that I like turn down a project if I don't think that it'll be colorful, but I just try to accept, well, I guess I would say that it also, as a creative, I do love color and I do try to push it, but it's also fun to use a different part of my brain. So if a project comes up where it isn't that colorful or it is different than my style, it's not always a bad thing, because I can practice something different and try something new. And I also love doing that.
I love that. Well, and you had mentioned pushing back a little bit when clients are not necessarily on board. Do you find, we talk a lot about mindset, and so do you find that takes a lot of courage for you, or what is that kind of perspective that you hold with that attitude?
Yeah, I think that it's something now in my 30s I've grown to understand, and I can have more authority behind some of my design choices of why I'm doing what I'm doing. If it's, calling attention to a focal point or bringing somebody, or I don't know, say you enter a space and there is a bright green wall at the back of the room, you will help flow everyone kind of going toward, they'll be like, what is that? And then there won't be a bottleneck in the front. So I don't know, things like this where I can, in my 20s and like that, I don't think I could articulate why I was doing what I was doing. But now after doing it for a bit, I can share knowledge and kind of say, this is why I'm doing that.
So kind of have a rationale behind it and then go with that. I feel like that's something that, I work with clients, I work in marketing, and so every so often I get very attached to an idea, even if the client is not on board. And I find that difficult to move on. But the other thing too, and Theo and I have talked a lot about this in terms of our own personal projects, is that idea of how do you move past self-doubt? Because especially when you're moving towards something that is so unclear, you don't know if people will respond to it, or you don't know if it will move anyone or whatever that is. So how do you go about personal projects like that? Is there a level of self-doubt, or
definitely?
How is
And a lot of times it just takes me to say like, oh, it's only my mom that's going to see this and she'll love it, so we'll be fine.
I love that.
And that's my mentality. And I'm like nervous. Yeah. I'm like, okay, well, I know that my mom will, like, if this is a social media post, I know she'll comment on it and like it. So at least there will be one person.
That's amazing.
That's because that's like such a smart way of harnessing that. Because like I've heard that notion being used in like a negative way with like so when I've been in bands and that kind of thing, and like the joke people make is like, oh well, it's just your parents who came to see you play or whatever, as if that's like
negative
no one,
mm-hmm.
like as if you should like somehow be ashamed of that, but like thinking of it the other way around, which is quite that's like a great way of harnessing that.
Well, then it's like you've given your parents a personal concert.
Yeah. It's just like I've never heard that. That's such a great, like, I'm gonna use that in my own thoughts.
And I should also point out that my mom and my husband, I know that both of them will like and comment and also show up.
That's amazing.
But whenever I am like thinking about something, I'm like, oh yeah, well, just do it because your only mom will see it. And then I forget that like 20,000 other people see it. Like, oh.
Well, I think that's helpful though. And I think the other thing that I've been thinking about, especially as we've been putting out content with the podcast and that kind of thing, is that we do have friends that will give us good feedback and they'll be gentle when they need to be and that kind of thing. But then they'll also kind of be there to repost stuff and like stuff and comment and that kind of thing. And that does feel good, right? So even if it is that a post will get, I don't know, 10 likes or whatever it is, right? Especially as we get going with it, then it's something that you still have that kind of warm feeling of like, oh, at least like somebody liked it. Yeah.
And with that, I think being more in the social media space now, I understand how important like liking something is, leaving a comment, some like resharing, all of that is. But before I took social media seriously, like it didn't click in my head. I don't know if this happens with other people, but I'm sharing this to give them the benefit of the doubt. Like I would see friends who were trying to pursue social media and I would watch it, but like, and it wasn't that I liked it or didn't like it, but it just didn't click that I should interact with it. Like I was like, oh yeah, like maybe I text being like, oh, that was so cute, or like I left that vacation photo, but it never clicked that the whole algorithm is like based off of like doing it there. Maybe it's more obvious now in 2025 where starting out social media, I think my first post was like a picture of my dog, and then the second post was a picture of a dust bunny that was like in my bedroom. I didn't get it. I didn't understand what Instagram was. Well,
like in 2014 or 2015 when I first got Instagram. And I mean, I'm glad that you couldn't, because now you can archive posts and you can like keep them in the backlog or whatever. But I'm glad that you couldn't do that back then, because honestly, like my first few posts, I know they're on like an external hard drive somewhere, but like, oh my gosh, and the filters were so aggressive.
I honestly thought that Instagram was a way to filter photos, and I would do that to then post them on my Twitter.
Amazing.
I didn't get it. Like I don't, and it probably clicked like around 2016, but still, social media was so different in 2016 than it was in 2020, 2025. But yeah, it's definitely something that I think about where I'm like, oh my gosh, all of those friends that I had who were trying to pursue this, and I just like liked it, but just never understood how much interacting helped.
Well, and now you're building another brand with Club Betty, and I feel like that's a really good segue to talk about that, because it is something that you're starting something new, and so building that up is always a bit of a challenge, because those first like 100 likes or the whatever those are the hardest ones to get, because then it starts to snowball.
I'm almost at 200 followers on that Instagram page, and nice. I can't believe it. It's like, oh my gosh, if 200 people walk through that door right now, like that'd be wild. So it is very exciting. It is crafting club community. So Club Betty is after my grandmother, Grandma Betty. She, I always say, she also was like one of my creative inspirations, but she would probably never say that she was like artistic. But she crocheted and knitted for probably 85 years. She lived to her 100th birthday, then she passed away a little after that. And she would make anything I asked for. And she also got into like like weaving like the cane on chairs and like doing needlepoint and like all different kinds of things. That she was a nurse and she would just come in between her shifts, like learn all these different creative projects. So she definitely is a huge inspiration of mine. And so Club Betty is named after her. But yeah, Club Betty is a crafting club where I'll teach how to accessorize your life. So either home projects or like fashion projects. And I'm starting them now in London. And so far I've done 4 workshops kind of, and trying to plan more.
That's amazing. I love that. And they've been so exciting to watch. I mean, I'm going to come to one. I really will. But you did one where you made a disco ball out of like a snow cone, or sorry, an ice cream cone.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So cool. And then you had a picture. So you like painted pictures. And then what were the other ones that you did?
I did an upcycling fashion one where we learned how to screen print onto shirts, but using freezer paper instead of a traditional screen. I think a lot of these things I get excited about because some of them seem expensive or like hard to like think you could do as a hobby. So I like to find ways to show people how to do something in a different way. So like this screen printing with freezer paper. And then the other one was a mix of painted glass pitchers, and then we also did sewing leather wallets. So that I actually brought with me today so we could also sew little leather card wallets together.
I can't wait. That's going to be so fun. Yes, amazing.
Okay, so in front of you, you're going to find your leather pieces, and these are little clips to hold your template in place, but you can take them off. So you have 2 pieces and you have a stencil in front of you as well. So first step is to cut on the dotted line, and then you're going to use your clips to place 1 stencil onto each piece of leather. Trim the leather to match that. And then you're going to use this funky yellow tool to punch holes on top of each black circle.
Okay.
So that's a good amount of instructions for now.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I love that.
Look at these scissors.
Okay, these are gorgeous. These are so fun.
They're like
so they, if you didn't know, they're scissors for all different types of things. And these are scissors for fabric, not paper. So actually what we're doing now is a big crafting no-no. Because the paper ruins the scissors.
Oh.
But
but
you know, life is life. You've got to just do it.
Break rules.
You can't carry around all different scissors all the time.
No, I agree. So your grandmother was kind of the inspiration behind naming it Club Betty. What got you to go for it in London?
Well, I used to live in San Francisco. That was my first stop in my adult life. And I, in San Francisco, worked for a blog, and I did all of their DIY projects. And with that, I did a lot of like workshops, and I hosted a Facebook Live show every week called Pies and DIYs.
Cute.
And I love just like meeting people and teaching people how to do things. So I've always wanted to do workshops in that aspect of work again. But it's hard when you move to a new city and you don't know anyone or anything. I didn't know where to host these workshops, like how to get people to come. And I tried to do it twice, and I had to cancel both times because I didn't sell a single ticket.
Wow.
And this past time, I made a video and posted it on my social media, and it worked. People saw the video, people started buying tickets. Amazing. And now I have a Instagram page of almost 200 people, and they all seem very excited to craft together. So it's like a dream come true.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it wasn't a short process.
Yeah. So how did that, because like I feel like that's a level of feeling like things aren't working out in a way. So how did you move forward from that feeling?
I mean, time. Like, the first time I posted it was 2023. It's now 2025 and I'm doing it. Yeah. So it wasn't like it didn't work this month, let me try again next month. It didn't work this year, let me try again next year.
Okay. Yeah.
So was it like you sort of felt like did you feel like this is something you needed to do still because you came back to it a few times and like
I really love the community aspect, and with my day job, I do a lot of things that are for people on PR lists, or sometimes I get to do projects that are for the public, but a lot of times they're private events. And I wanted to do these kind of craft clubs and events for just normal people and like get other people together and meet each other. And that's like really important. And I guess my my like personal pillars, like cool. Community and like connection.
Yeah.
So I put it back on my vision board for 2024, and then I didn't do it again.
Are you doing it right?
Am I doing it right?
Yeah, so you just I trim. You don't have to trim the leather to the template. But yeah, you just put it on and then you punch in each black hole.
But only one. Okay, cool. I'm gonna trim the leather.
Okay, I think I'll trim the leather after, you know. See, then I'm like
smart.
Well, I'm just catching up, you know. No, I love that though, because it's one of those things that like just because something didn't work out now or at this one moment doesn't mean that it'll never work out.
Yeah,
and I think that that's a level of perseverance that's so inspiring.
Yeah, you know? It definitely. It's hard to say if I tried this third time and it didn't work. Would I have picked it up again? I don't know.
Well, I mean, they say third time's the charm.
Yeah,
you know? Like,
yeah.
So that's great. So with that, I mean, you've got quite a few different things on the go, right? I mean, you do murals, you have spatial design that you do that are kind of the same but different in a way, and then you've got Club Betty, and then you work with the PR teams and that kind of thing in terms of like more of a day job. How do you find balance?
I also have a line of disco balls in the US, and that's called House of Betty, and I sell them on Etsy and on my website, the House of Betty, houseofbetty.com. Yes.
Nice.
The email address is houseofbettydecor because I couldn't get the other one, but yeah. I love to do a lot of things, and it is really hard to find time. And I think that, I don't know, I kind of just think as a creative, everyone's brain maybe moves this way. I constantly am finding something new that I want to do and trying to figure out where to find the time to do it. And then I also suffer from wasting time syndrome, where if I'm watching TV or something, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, but I should have been putting together a DIY project for testing this to then do it for a workshop or something like that. I'm like, oh man, like I should have used my time better.
Right. So like sitting and resting is kind of a weird concept, you know?
Yeah.
We spoke about that actually with a previous guest, who she quoted a few different kind of inspiring people that she follows or prescribes to, and talks.
Subscribes to.
The English major just corrects me, but anyways, but yeah, so you're right, subscribes to. Anyways, and I really found that quite inspiring too, because it is hard to, especially when you're self-employed and self-directed and that kind of thing, to take breaks and to actually like rest and that kind of thing. And as a creative, I get it, because like my mind is always moving to like, oh, here's something we could do, or like experience or whatever, right? Like, I'm so bad for making over planning. And that's one thing that Theo helps me to balance a little bit and like actually rest. But I'm so bad for, and I used to be this way in university where I would plan to like the quarter hour, right? So like every 15 minutes I would be like, this is what's gonna happen. So I think that that's something that's difficult to balance. I'm sure that, I mean, you've got what's going on.
I do love traveling, and I do kind of think that that is my like time. I wouldn't say that on my trips. I also like to constantly be moving and seeing and exploring, so it's not necessarily my time of rest, but it's my time of rest away from like my computer or like work life,
kind of mental rest.
But I also, I don't know if when people talk about like burnout and those kind of things, like I can't really think of a time that I felt that way. I enjoy hobbies. I enjoy like being busy and doing things, and I enjoy a busy calendar.
That's cool. I like that. And so then what to you is success in your creative pursuits?
I would say it is like really just feeling proud of a project. A lot of times in my projects, and I think we kind of chatted about this before, where if you're working with clients, sometimes the original direction changes based on their feedback. And if you're working on your own, a lot of times I find that the project changes because of my personal budget. I have to like make sacrifices. And yeah, that's hard. Like success to me is just like being proud of it from start to finish, because a lot of times I do walk away from something and I'm like, oh yeah, like this is good, but like if I just had more time, it would be better. And you know, maybe that's when if I was to rank it, it would be success 8 out of 10 instead of a 10 out of 10.
I love that. That's actually such a good way to look at it. And I mean, I'm kind of a perfectionist that way. And I mean, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but that whole concept of that progress over perfection kind of thing, or that
I'm really focused on this is
okay. I have both of my dad.
Okay, amazing. I'm too chatty. But I think that's the other thing, is that like if you let perfection stand in the way of getting things done, then that'll cause more problems. Or that's what I find, is that then I don't go for it, and then I feel bad about myself. So yeah, I think that that's a good way to look at it, is that like, does it hit that 8 out of 10, you know?
I want to ask a question.
Yeah.
Sorry. When I get into like craft mode, I turn into a bit of a kid.
Anyway. Good. Play is what is needed.
Yes. So let's go back to the beginning. Way back to the beginning. So like, what did you like do like some kind of like education and then say I'm gonna go into like graphic design, or what was the first thing that you started to do? I guess my question is, what did you start to do like career wise that was like the first creative career thing that you...
I mean, if we go all the way back, it was my love of trading spaces TLC and just taking like I would make everyone's gifts, and I remember being like, Dad, we have extra ceiling tiles downstairs, right? Like, can you cut them into a snowman shape for me so I can paint them for Mom for like her Christmas present? Like, did my mom need ceiling tiles in the shape of snowmen?
That's so cute. I love that.
And like that was yeah, I mean, my mindset for as long as I can remember. And then like I mentioned earlier, like I put those flyers to decorate people's spaces, but it wasn't that successful. The most successful next step was a jewelry company with my friend, and we made beaded lanyards for teachers to wear their badges on. And we sold them at craft shows at school. And that was a great, I think, element of learning like how to price things and like how people like can buy and exchange things for money. It was all funded by my parents. None of the money that I made went back into the business. I was very fortunate for my parents to just buy me more beads. But that was like my next kind of creative job. And then after that, probably in high school, that was when I started to need to think about a career. And again, I'm very fortunate. My older sister always like has always been very business savvy, and she immediately was like, "Oh, Kelly, you're going into graphic design." And I had no idea what that even was. And I just trusted her. And I was like, okay, like if she says that this is the career path that is good for me, like this is what I'll major in, this is what I'll do. So I went to Northeastern in Boston in Massachusetts. And I was very, again, fortunate that that school does a co-op program. So you go for 5 years, and then 2 semesters you have to work at a company, and you have to graduate with a total of a year work experience. So I had 2 6-month co-ops, and one was at a fashion brand outside of New York City, and I did their like website photography and making their digital banners and working on like email campaigns, and that kind of taught me that I didn't want to be in fashion.
Okay, yeah, it's good to know what you don't want to do, just as much as you need to know what you do want to do.
Yeah. And so then my second co-op, I found my own I don't know if Northeastern still runs this way, but Northeastern has like job boards where you can like search and apply, kind of like their own LinkedIn, but you can also go out and find your own. So that's what I did the second time around, and I found a media company in San Francisco that had a whole, their whole mission was everyone's creative and to practice creativity. So I applied as a DIY designer, and I worked there for 6 months, and I made all different kinds of DIY projects and tutorials. And I mean, I started doing written tutorials, and then I started doing video tutorials, and then hosting. Well, surprise, they hired me. So
love that.
So that's how I kept doing more and more things, because they hired me.
Ideal.
So yeah. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of also the golden example of the college, because their whole goal is that you do work experience and then get hired by the job.
Right.
And it worked out for me. So I got hired by them. So yeah, I started to grow as a designer who made things, and I kind of left behind graphic design. And I started doing more art direction, where I would style out a photo set or a video set, learned more about like mood boarding and concepting a photo shoot, and bringing that from start to finish with models and props and making props. And then that this is hopefully a long but easy to follow story, because we just started from 8 years old and now we're at like 26 years old.
Yeah. Well, so you started, I mean, for one thing, just going back, so you started as like a very industrious kid.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm going to do things that's like going to support my dreams and like make this happen and like step out into the world and like offer these kind of services in a way. And then
how did you do that?
I'm so quick.
Cut the thing.
Yeah.
That's so okay.
And then you moved into a kind of a more, in a way, traditional start to a career, right? Where you worked for a company, and then that led you to now being able to work in a more...
So from the job at the media company in San Francisco, they went through a big round of layoffs and I lost that position. And I thought that I would find a new company, but then I started getting people reaching out about freelance work. And one project led to another project, which all led to me having less time to find a real job. And it, again, just all kind of fell into place. I told everyone I never wanted to be a freelancer. I always wanted to have steady income, know when each paycheck was coming. But after doing it for a year, I realized, oh, I guess this is my life. And now it's been 8 years of freelancing.
Wow.
So, and now it's hard to think about going back to a full-time role where I have so much control over my schedule, so much control over doing personal projects, like within my work projects. But it is hard still. Like, you still never know when the next project is happening. There is a lot of times where you get hired for a project and the project gets canceled. You're as a freelancer, you're in my case, designer, but I'm also my HR, I'm also my finance team, I'm also my marketing team, like all of those things. I don't have somebody that I can just be like, hey, can you like figure out this invoice or follow up with this person, or can you track the expenses? Like, no, that's me.
Yeah. So there's the pros and cons with it, right? And so it's that price of flexibility in a way, right? But I do love that you've been able to make the freelancing work. I mean, that's something that getting started can often be quite difficult for people, especially in the freelance world. So what was the first kind of big project that you worked on as a freelancer that you felt like, okay, so this is something I could do?
Yeah, so I got laid off from the job very unexpectedly, and that was in San Francisco, and I was, are we all finished? We're all ready for the next step?
I think I'm ready.
Okay, I'll pause that story and we'll talk about how to do the next step, and then I'll come back to that.
Amazing.
So I've threaded the needle for you.
Thank you.
But
we love that.
You're gonna have to tie a knot at the end of the string.
Okay.
And then I kind of like triple knot in the same location.
End of the string.
Yeah.
Okay.
And for this, I do a single thread because it's like a thick waxy string, so you don't have to double it. And then I leave just like a 3-inch tail on the top end of this.
So you just tie it here.
So no, tie it at the other end.
This one.
Yeah. And then that way it'll stay in your
3 knots.
3 knots.
It's probably aggressive, but that's just what I do.
Hey, that's great. There we go. Then 3-inch tail. Nice. Around there. You're doing great.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
I am trying to focus on 2 things, and I'm bad at that.
The male multitasking ability is different.
Very
so,
different.
Like, do I want the knots to be like on each other?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, definitely thinks that I mean, how many times have I tied knots and string? And so I'm like, yeah, like, how hard is it? Just tie them on top of each other. But if you don't do it, yeah, that's hard.
Yeah, no, I get it. I like to do a bit of knitting here and there. It's nice when I'm, like, especially in the winter, like watching TV and just doing something with my hands. I like that.
Yeah. My grandma always said that knitting and crocheting helped her to not snack as much, and so that's why she did it for so long. But we also think that it really aided in her living to 100. It kept her brain busy, and then it also it kept her from snacking on foods that were maybe more unhealthy. And I actually don't knit or crochet myself.
So fair.
I tried so much, but I never got into it.
Actually, my grandma and my mom both. My mom crochets a lot, and my mom knits a lot.
What do I do with this one?
So then you just
keep the needle on the thread, but leave a little tail, so your needle's not really at the end of the string. So now we're gonna put our knot in between our two pieces of leather. And now you're going to take your needle and just on the back side, push it through the top hole. So just on one, not both of them. You just really want this.
Okay. Yeah. So like, you just want it to be like this.
Oh.
But not through the first one, just the second one.
Yeah.
So now your needle's at the back and you're going to wrap it around to the front and come through the front hole and then through the back hole again. And you want your thread to like wrap around. I mean, I'm on my left side, but...
So we put it through the front and then through the same one that the knot is.
Yeah.
Oh, pretty.
And then I do that twice just to extra secure the most top area because that sees the most like wear from pulling the card in and out.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's something, you made a good point there, that like it does help to keep your mind active, like having crafts and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a real thing with like physical projects, right? Because I do think that there's a lot of value to projects on the computer and that kind of thing, but with a physical project you're active in a different way, you know, and you're not looking at a screen and that kind of thing.
Like hand-eye coordination in this sense, like thinking about how in this here I'm like telling you like, oh, how should we have it be held together, but when you're on your own doing a project, you're like, okay, like there's so many ways that you could like stitch a wallet like this, and this is the way that I came up with and then thought was good to teach. But when you start off just with your own thing, you're using your brain to think, how am I gonna stitch it together?
Okay, so you worked on a freelance project.
Yes.
So your first freelance project that you got
going so on. The one thing that I wanted to mention, so about being laid off, I then applied for unemployment, and with my severance and with unemployment, like I had a good buffer to travel a little bit before taking on a project and taking on a project that I was like unsure about. So I think that that's kind of important to know that like I had a little bit more financial stability with those two things, and being, what was I, 27 at the time, I guess, so it wasn't like I had built up a huge savings prior to that.
But still, some stability helps with being able to take a risk like that. That makes a difference,
So the risk that I took came from social media. Someone reached out to me and said, I have a project. I'm opening up an experiential wine museum in New York City. Could you help me design it? And I was like, this is the biggest scam I've ever heard of. Like, how in the world is this happening? And I, at the time, lived in California, but I'm from New Jersey. And so I was headed back that way for a wedding. And I was like, okay, like, let's meet in person because, like, I don't believe this. But it was true. And she was opening up, at that time, it was 2018. And that was when, like, Museum of Ice Cream and all these, like, really experiential museums started taking off. So this was a museum all about rosé wine, and each room you learned about a different type of rosé, and so there was the sweet room, and like the sweet room was decorated as a different kind of experience than the acid room, where you learned about the acidity in rosé wine. So that was my first really big project as a freelancer. And it had great traction. Like, people loved it. And through that, I was very fortunate with the founder putting my name on the website. So I had different experiential and event agencies reach out to me after that to work together. So that's kind of the first project that kicked it all off, and made me, I guess, more confident in freelancing.
Yeah. That's so cool. And also, I mean, I love wine, so that helps. But that would be so interesting to be a part of that. But also kind of a cool story that you were like, this can't be real at the beginning. You know, like, that's kind of crazy how something like that popped up.
Again, it's going back to that, like, social media situation where it was 2018. So nowadays, you, of course, hear from, like, you communicate with brands on Instagram DM, and you, like, have, it's not uncommon to have business conversations on Instagram DM. In 2018, to me, it was very uncommon. So I was like, what is going on? Is this real? But yeah, it all kind of just like fell into place, because again, I probably would have never, if I wasn't from New Jersey and was going back for a wedding, like I would have never flown out to, let's say, Chicago to like meet up with someone who Instagram DM'd me, like
for sure.
So
with, like, no certainty that they're a real person. And that, that's so interesting. And that's actually, that kind of leads into one of the points that, like, we've talked about, especially in the arts world, is that you do have to take risks in a way, and like, things will happen more unconventionally. I feel like that's something that, like, these opportunities, because they are different and they're not necessarily in like you apply for a job and then you get the job. It's like a very, almost like a meet cute in every story, you know, like it's very different for every person.
The way that I do and handle work, and like thinking just about how my dad worked at AT&T for 37 years and like never left one company, and it's so different about how I take so many risks and find work in so many different ways. But yeah, I think it's also what I needed for my creative brain.
I love that. How's your wallet going, Theo?
I'm really enjoying your guys' conversation. and I'm really focused, and this is great. Like, excellent. Have you ever seen those, there's like videos of people, and they're not just on video, they also exist in real life, but they, like, have you ever watched people tanning leather?
No. Is it like one of those like ASMR type of?
It's kind of relaxing, actually. It's
really cool. But this reminds me of that. Because we're working with leather. But there's I'm just thinking about, like, especially with what we're doing right now, like there's something about because this is like it's art, but it's also practical. It's something that I'm going to use for my cards and that. And like there's a really interesting intersection between like art and creative stuff, and then like life, like practical, useful things like this. But I feel like that's kind of like this like underlining theme that's going on in this conversation of like, because when you're talking about like designing spaces, in a way that's like injecting creativity and artistic kind of aesthetic thing, but also like the practical element of that.
I would say that a lot of my DIY work comes from wanting something and seeing a price tag that's out of my budget, or like a lot of times, especially with fashion, I'm like, oh, well, this is a trend. Will I like this next summer? I don't know. Let me go to the thrift store, pick up something, grab my sewing machine, alter it, and make it myself, instead of spending that money on something that I'm not sold on. Same with furniture. I'll see something and I'll be like, oh, well, that doesn't look hard to make. So I'll make it myself.
Have you ever done like restorations or anything like that with like furniture? Because I love that. That's the coolest.
So a lot of it also, I wish that I had a studio space or something, but I've always lived in a city, and with a city you don't have access to the same type of tools, the same type of space.
Yeah.
Also, we live in London, and like I can't just like leave something out on my patio with like furniture stain on it because it could rain any second. So a lot of the DIY, and I've always lived in a city as an adult. So a lot of the projects that I do are limited by that because I don't have access to a saw and a yard.
Are you almost done your...
You guys are done?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought I was like cruising. Oh.
You know, every craft should be at your own pace.
Yeah. You should enjoy the process.
I am very much enjoying the process.
Well, the last part is just tying it off, which I do by threading the needle. So I like kind of open the wallet and thread the needle through the second to last stitch. And then with that, I like let a little loop of thread appear. And then I put my needle through that loop to start tying a knot. And I do that about 2 or 3 times to get like a strong knot. I just kind of keep looping the thread through that same area and tying a knot. It isn't, I don't know if that's in any other sewing tutorials, but that is just how I do it.
That's great.
Are we still doing it where it's like you do a bunch through the top one?
Yeah, I do twice through, or I go through the top one 3 times, but twice horizontally.
So we've talked about your kind of origin story. We've talked about your process moving through. We've talked about Club Betty, which has been so cool. And we've gotten a live tutorial of what a Club Betty experience is. And we've talked about what success means to you. What's next for you? What are you thinking? What's your kind of exciting next steps?
So my end dream goal is to one day own and design a boutique hotel by the beach.
So cool.
So that is where I hope and manifest that life takes me. But to get there, I would love to turn Club Betty into a physical space that people could come to, have maybe some type of membership, subscription. I would love for it to have like a YMCA feel where it is like a community center. Also having like co-working spaces, but for creatives. A lot of times I feel I can't go to a co-working spot because I need a big screen. I do like design work in SketchUp and I need to see what I'm building. Or I maybe want to practice a mural, but I'm like, I can't keep painting my wall to my house. Like this space could be digital art, but then also space to practice physical art, have some type of like locker system. I would also love this space to have an element for influencers and content creators, rooms to record videos in, rooms to record podcasts in. So that's like, I guess my more next step goal. And then after that, I would love to then expand from this community center concept to this travel vacation spot.
So cool.
And have a line of different hospitality boutique hotels.
That's so cool. I love that. That's such a great kind of lofty big picture. And
yeah.
I love that stems from creativity and like the different areas of creativity that you have and all of your passions. So
so we
have a wallet.
Yes.
Look at how cute this is.
This is cool.
Okay, honestly, I had to trust the process a little bit in the middle because when I cut it, I was like, I don't know if I cut it nicely. And then
I certainly didn't cut it nicely.
Well, it looks nice,
but it looks good.
Yeah,
I'm so impressed.
The stitching, the diagonal stitching definitely helps. Yeah. Like any off cuts that you might have made in the beginning.
So
keeps it together.
The process. We love that.
And it's leather, so it'll
hold up.
It'll like shift and mold.
Yeah.
To the,
mm-hmm.
Is it genuine?
It is.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
I love asking that question about leather. Was the cow genuine? Sorry, I'm like usually I'm really serious on the podcast, but then you set like crafts and I'm just
good.
I revert to being 12.
Yes.
That's perfect. I love it.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Chill. Okay.
Amazing. Well, I think that, I've had so much fun with our conversation and
good.
with our craft.
Me too.
I feel like you've given so many great insights into
the
creative world, the creative process. Coming up with something kind of new in general, like a craft club, but then also being a spatial designer is different than kind of what people may have anticipated. So they can find all of your work on Instagram.
Yes.
And so we'll link your Instagram and everything.
Awesome.
And Club Betty.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in London,
yes,
come with
please
me, check out a
please come and join the class.
Yeah, so that'll be fun. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm really impressed. I'm really, really interested in I'm gonna carry forward this idea of how the arts and how creativity really like that's where we started, and I think that's how we end, is like this idea of using the arts and the creative capacity to transform your like the tangible reality and like evidence of that.
It's
really cool. It's really like invigorating and life.
Yeah, you made it from 0 to 100.
I love it. That's perfect.
So
amazing. Well, thank you again for coming.
Oh, of course. Thank you for having me.
Amazing.